So Fauci was testifying in front of Congress yesterday, and surprise, surprise, he played semantic games and said, "I don't know," over 100 times. And this was always the predictable outcome. Never forget with COVID, they censored you for things such as suggesting that it could have came from a lab. You were considered racist against Chinese people if you thought that the United States under Dr. Fauci partially funded a lab in Wuhan that was experimenting on coronaviruses, and it escaped from the lab and ended up affecting people around the world. That was considered racist. Instead, the non-racist position were backwards Chinese people at a wet market were unhygienic and were eating rare exotic animals without properly caring for the food, which caused a spread of the disease around the world. That was the non-racist position. Remember, places like Facebook censored you if you were saying that it could have came from a lab. We now know that not only was there an involvement of Dr. Fauci, that he was funding this through Peter Daszak, but the original papers with some 40 scientists signed on saying no way it could have came from a lab was basically ghost-written by the same Peter Daszak. They were getting incredible amounts of money that were being signed off by Dr. Fauci. Rand Paul was calling this out the whole time, and the media and the Democratic establishment was calling him a quack. Now it's time for answers. Never forget this. Your friends, your family that lost their businesses, that couldn't attend weddings for family members, whose loved one died alone in nursing homes, all of this stuff, the horrible tragedy that came about because of the authoritarian policies of COVID, all of it started with a lie by Dr. Fauci and the fact that they were playing God and financing this lab, which it now looks like inevitably was where the virus came from, and they lied about it. The person you were told you had to put your trust in that was instrumental in coming up with these policies that ruined your lives and ruined millions of people's lives around this country, that we're still suffering the ramification, the economic ramification, the psychological ramification, the physical damage that was caused by it. And we were told that we had to put our trust in a guy that lied to us from day one, who knew that he signed off on the funding that went to this lab. And now he's going to try to weasel out of it and go, well, technically us sending funding for them to experiment on coronaviruses, we don't technically consider that gain of function. He should face the legal consequences of this, and every person of good conscience would be demanding as such. However, you'll see a bunch of the people that engaged in the religion of COVID and saying that we had to lock down and you wanted to kill grandma if you disagreed. All of a sudden, they'll be protecting Dr. Fauci for this. Never forget the lesson of COVID, how even regular people would become authoritarians and treat you as the enemy and wish any sort of ill on you. Remember, around 29% of Democrats polled said they thought your children should be taken away from you if you refuse to get vaccinated. Until it's held accountable, this authoritarianism will occur over and over again. And a good start would be holding Dr. Fauci legally accountable.